Good afternoon, everyone. It is a joy to return to the annual Global Investment Summit. Today's panel, Investing in Causes and Community in the Digital Age. I am Sabrina Lamb, the founder and executive director of the World of Money, a New York City-based nonprofit dedicated to providing immersive financial education for children, young people from ages 7 to 21, and I'm the founder and CEO of Wakeza, a fintech democratizing investing for all. Today's panel, again, is Investing in Causes and Community in the Digital Age. And joining us is a robust panel of global CEOs. First, coming to our virtual stage is Mr. Jim King, President and CEO of FAHI, Ernest Sack, partner of Blue Bear Capital, Parth Desai, principal of Flair Capital Partners, and Christelle Cornelius, CEO of First Nations Owista Corporation, is also joining us. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
You're very welcome. So let's go around the virtual room and could I hear what your headlines, what woke you up this morning in terms of the urgency of your work, and share with us a little bit about your companies. Let's start with Parth.
Yeah, well, great to be here, Sabrina and everyone. Thanks for having me. Happy to start, happy to tell you a little bit more about myself, the work we do here at Flair Capital. So myself, I've been in and around the healthcare industry for a little over a decade or so. Initially started off on the clinical side of things. Parents are both physicians, so exposed very early on, saw firsthand that many of the things that worked well, but maybe not so well in the healthcare industry. I wanted to go to med school. I wanted to be a clinician. I was always fascinated by the biology and practice of medicine. But healthcare is a universal human right. And as I learned a lot more about the industry, and I began to appreciate the macro challenges, I would say that, currently limit equitable access to top-notch clinical care. And, I felt strongly that equity was as important, if not more important, than simply delivering great clinical care. And so decided to pursue that career path to learn more about these challenges and address them. Led to a lot of great opportunities working on healthcare policy that was reforming access, cost, and quality of care. But eventually, the other side of these policy reforms, working with healthcare executives, thinking about corporate strategies that help them enact innovation and provide more value-based care services. Great experiences, but I really wanted to get closer to the innovation taking place in healthcare and be able to both shape and build that. And that's what led me to New York Presbyterian Hospital. I got a chance to work with the hospital leadership team and set innovation priorities, invest in early stage innovation, and really develop a deeper understanding about how some transformative technology can be used to improve the operations, delivery, and quality of care. And then lastly, I would say that led me to where I'm at today here at Flair Capital, where we invest in early stage healthcare startups that, again, are focused on reducing the cost of care, improving access to care, and improving the quality of care. We invest on behalf of 10 large health systems, 6 national plans, pharma, lab, and device companies. And the goal of all the investments we make, all the work we do, is again oriented around those 3 kind of key tenets of our fund, which is, and I'll repeat it one last time, reducing the cost of care, improving access to care, and improving the quality of care.
Thank you so much. Ernest Sack, what woke you up this morning, and talk about the urgency of your investment thesis at Blue Bear Capital?
Okay, well, thank you, Sabrina. What woke me up this morning was my 2-year-old kicking me in the head. But besides that,
that's urgent.
At Blue Bear, we invest. Yes, at Blue Bear, we invest in digital solutions for energy infrastructure and climate. So you don't have to get very political or religious about this. You just see wildfires, you see grids shutting down because of freezes, On the positive side, you see a really rapidly escalating penetration of electric vehicles and wind and solar installations. So we feel like we're living through really a civilizational change of how the world is powered, how the economy is fueled, how people get around and energize their day-to-day lives, and how can we maximize that continued economic and social development without choking the planet through negative externalities. So that's really what motivates me and everybody in the Blue Bear team. And we think that digital tech, Silicon Valley type technologies, operational AI are such an exceptional tool to accelerate change in all of the industries this panel represents, but they've been underrepresented in the more hardcore industrial natured energy industry. And that's something we're excited to try to address.
Thank you so much. Jim Key from FAHI. What woke you up this morning? What's urgent about your work?
Oh man, well, it's so good to be here. And if I wasn't already woke up this morning, your energy would have done it for me, Sabrina. It's like infectious. So FAHI, we're based in Appalachia, which is one of the perennially poor parts of the United States, and so our job is to help bring the American dream to folks, which we think of in terms of financial opportunity. What woke me up this morning were a couple of things. One is the continued news about the economic and income disparity that's growing, I think, in our country. That where the pandemic has hit so many folks, many of the people that we're working for, had been without jobs and are falling behind as we see other parts of our country actually moving ahead. And so that just creates a bigger gap in the work that we want to solve for. And so that feels urgent. And somewhat related, we've had a lack of investment in regions like Appalachia, and we're not the only part of the country that has had this, but we're watching very closely and trying to chime in on the infrastructure bill that's being discussed. In particular, things like broadband are a huge, that digital gap or digital divide between folks who have access and those who don't. And we really saw that over the last year, where if kids had to do school from home but didn't have good broadband access, that really hurts. I had folks on my own team who, if I had to work remotely, didn't have the kind of broadband speed even available in their community. And so those are two things that kind of relate to sort of where we find ourselves and where we need to see investment in places that would make a difference in people's lives.
Absolutely. And last but not least, Christelle Cornelius from Oswego Corporation. What woke you up this morning? What's the urgency of your work? You're muted.
Bonjour, Nina Nishnabaya Kwe Mikanakwajishkin Gandonji Mashkode Bijiki Equatijnikash. Good morning. My name is Crystal Cornelius. I am a Native woman from the Turtle Mountain Indian Reservation in Belcourt, North Dakota. Also the CEO of the Owista Corporation. I love your question, and I chime with Jim's comment. Your energy is just contagious. So Sabrina, snap, snap. Wonderful. But what wakes me up in the morning, honestly, each and every day, and I'll give a little conduit to our organization, but it is still, even as we're looking and we're coming to a racial reckoning in America, which in my mind is far overdue, right? We're finally taking back layers of racism, of how that's tied directly to the economy and all of these different pivot points. Still yet, as a Native woman, our Native communities are tribal nations. We have 573 tribes in the United States after colonization. We're still largely invisible. We're still largely uncapitalized, and we still largely have narratives that aren't reflective of our true opportunity, of our cultures and our people. So Owista is a national CDFI. We're the only Native CDFI intermediary lender, and essentially our organization has helped create over 69 certified CDFIs in the nation, predominantly in Native American communities, because we find not only based on predominantly the rural nature, we have no access to capital. And if we did as tribal nations, it would essentially be predatory lending. So when we look at the ability to advance our own economic viability, to create our own healthy communities, we were capital strapped. So for the past 20 years, OWISTA and our native CDFI financial institutions really have become the financial pillars within their respective organizations. So even if you look at border towns and accessible financing institutions, a lot of our conventional banks are agricultural lenders. Our people don't have the collateral credit to really interject into this system. So OWISTA, over our past 20 years, have dispersed and loaned over $90 million to our native communities. We have experienced one loan default. I made that loan. It was $10,000 and they paid back $7,000, so that's still partial. But what we really do is offer the capital capacity building to create entrepreneurship, housing, consumer type lending, to really have tribal members have the accessibility, as Jim said, to an American dream. And very important in that measure, culturally relevant training and culturally relevant systems that really honor who we are as tribal people, but also provide a bridge to larger capital sources. So that's essentially what we do, what we've been doing for 20 years, and very, very proud of our work, but more so our successes is based on our native communities. And I love the conversations previously. We are emerging markets. Rural communities are emerging markets. And when we look at the digital divide, the lack of broadband, whether we look at the economic disparities we're finding, there's a, in my opinion, a false narrative that people are moving out of rural communities, where actually, for those of us that live and represent rural communities, are finding a huge influx. That's because of climate change. That's because of economic disparity, and the marginalization, and we're seeing the rich do well, and we're seeing the rest of us fall behind. So what I find exciting just globally about this, if we look 20 years from now, we invest in this infrastructure, we're creating America of what America is going to look like 20 years from now. Our coasts are changing, our economies are changing. So really creating vibrant communities that access the digital age is where we're going, and we're going there fast. COVID has really shown that. So with that, thank you.
Brilliant. And so how do you all view collaboration? I'm hearing all of your very important, urgent work. How would you view, particularly the companies that you invest in, investing in Native communities, investing in Appalachia? And just pardon me for putting you all on the spot, but do your companies collaborate and maybe expand the natural geographical focus? I put you on the spot, Mr. Sack. What are your thoughts about collaboration, or anyone?
I can start with that. We have really done a wonderful job of collaborating, not only different, I would say, financial entities, whether that's foundations, high wealth individuals. So and some of our collaboration efforts, just in particular to OWISTA, and Jim King is involved as well, we are a member of something called Partners for Rural Transformation, which represents the persistent poverty areas in America, deepest pockets of poverty represented globally. We're trying to put together $1 billion fund to represent these organizations. So we have 6 CDFIs that represent Indian country, Appalachia, Mississippi Black Belt, colonias, and migrant workers in California. When we look at that in collaboration and how we're able to voice narrative and bring in capital, it's worked very well. And I'm really finding in this digital age, it's very easy to invest in myself, to invest in Jim, to invest in our local members. So technology really has enhanced the ability to reach communities that you wouldn't really think would be accessible.
Thank you. Are there any synergies, Jim and Parth, of working together? The healthcare companies that you invest in, perhaps we can serve the communities in Appalachia. Pardon, I'm putting you on the spot, but these are questions just coming to mind.
Yeah, what I would say is, so our fund and our team invests about half a billion dollars on behalf of 10 large health systems. I would say the footprint of those health systems ranges across the country. It's urban centers, but many of them have a very strong rural footprint, have a very strong FQHC and community health center footprint. I think to Crystal's point, the core infrastructure of healthcare delivery in this country, serving some of the most underserved and vulnerable populations in this country, really is in Appalachia, is in those rural communities. And, you know, sadly, there's also some of the most under-resourced providers in our healthcare ecosystem. And so the way we think about supporting that community, and a core part of our investment philosophy, the teams, the companies we back, is really how do we uplift that infrastructure? How do we provide better technology, better access to clinical resources, better, frankly, overall infrastructure, so that those providers serving those communities are able to do that at the top of their license. And so there are a handful of companies in our portfolio that are focused on that. I would say some of them are focused on actually working with those providers to expand their reach and improve their ability to deliver care. But some of them are going into these homes. They're realizing that these folks can't access care, aren't able to, you know, leave their homes to go to a health system or a provider group. And so they're coming into the home. You know, they're going to meet these individuals where they are, where the care need is, setting up technology, equipment, but bringing the right types of providers so that these folks have access to the care they need in the most convenient fashion. So many examples of it, but just a high level overview of how we've been approaching it.
Jim, how do you perceive collaboration?
Yeah, well, you know, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go with friends. And so there's nothing we do without trusted partners or friends. We maintain a field of membership, so we have boots on the ground in multiple states, and we maintain other partnerships with about 100 other nonprofit, community-based organizations, 6 of whom came together to work with a small hospital system in Northeast Tennessee called Ballad Health. They're present, I think, in Southwest Virginia and part of North Carolina. And I think to Parth's comments, you know, like we want to receive partners like y'all to really work with us. We've got folks on the ground who are leaders in their communities, right? Like they're not just community-based organizations. These are the people who sit on school boards and water and sewer commission, and think about that community hospital and how do we keep care for folks. And it matters to them because they live there, right? So they're big stakeholders, and so we invest. I know investment is one of the big topics of the Global Investment Summit, right? But when I think about investment, it isn't always just capital; it's about people, and how do you build those relationships in a way that can be leveraged, so that we go far together, because we have communities that need to go a long distance.
Thank you.
It's powerful.
Thank you, Ernst.
I can give a few quick examples also. And I happen to have grown up in northern Appalachia, where the internet is still terrible. I just tried to get my family in line for the Starlink program because that's pretty much the only opportunity. And it's Shawnee country, and there's absolutely no visible connection, let alone wealth for that legacy community where we are. But a lot of the original wealth in that area has come from steel, coal, natural gas, all industries that are in decline long term. And so a big initiative and mission we have is how to retrain, re-educate, and make available all the economic growth coming out of wind, solar, electric infrastructure for those communities that have tremendous operational and engineering skill and project development and land management, just in what's now historically the wrong industries. So we work with groups like the City of Houston, for example. There's another organization, the Clean Energy Leadership Fund, CELF, that's trying to go into schools and get kids excited about what renewable energy and climate change mean for your long-term career opportunities. So how can you take all this alarm and turn it into constructive job opportunities that are maybe not what your parents and grandparents did, but are, you know, the next generation's version of that are also more sustainable.
Thank you. So if I am a company, a pre-launch company in any of your sectors, how do I reach you? When is it, no, here's a better question. When is it too early to contact you? Because sometimes we hear the term pre-seed or seed, and it means different things to different investors. So how early is it to contact you seeking investment, Ernst and Parth?
So we invest at what we call early revenue stage, which is often seed through Series A or Series B. But it's never too early. I'm sure most investors would say that. We love meeting teams when they're still at idea stage or forming. And a big part of our model is many of our LPs come from the leadership of much larger private equity firms like the Blackstones, Apollos, KKRs of the world. And so we like to be able to connect earliest stage founders with that much later stage capital. But in the interim, help develop businesses towards who are your most likely customers, what are some great talent pools you've maybe not thought of to recruit from if you're missing a key software engineering or customer success type talent in your team. And then we'll actually come in and write a check once there's some demonstrated fit between what you're doing and the world needing it in the form of revenue.
Yeah. Parth?
So it's a great question. There's a couple aspects to it, the way we think about things. So we're an early stage investor, somewhat to Ernst seed, Series A, Series B is our sweet spot, but we invest across the full life cycle, including pre-seed. So it's never too early to reach out. But I think another important aspect, and it's something I think we've been very thoughtful about since the inception of our fund, is we might not necessarily be able to invest in every team and company we meet. And I think we're mindful about how we can do a better job of being resourceful to phenomenal individuals and entrepreneurs who we might not have the fortune of working with, but still want to support. So we actually have two programs. We have a program we call the Scholar Program. It's really expanding access to the venture capital, but also the health tech industry, to anyone in schools across the country. We recruit 50 individuals from a range of schools and healthcare organizations across the country every year to participate in the program. We teach them the business of venture capital, but we also invite them to events throughout the year. A big part of, I think, increasing equity and access is giving people exposure to a network they might not have been able to source or expose themselves to on their own. And so that's a core part of the program. The other part, another focus area for us.
Repeat the name of that program, please.
It's called the Flair Scholar Program.
Okay. Go ahead.
And the second initiative I want to quickly call out is we also want to make ourselves available to anybody who is passionate about or interested in starting a healthcare business or just learning about the healthcare industry. And so every quarter we offer office hours. It's open to anybody. Literally anybody can sign up for it. And it's our entire team is available for these sessions. We set up dedicated slots to answer questions, provide advice, make introductions. Again, we just want to be a resource to individuals who are interested in healthcare, interested in how to build a business, interested in how to get access to venture capital. And so again, that's a completely free and equitable resource that if anybody wants to learn more about, I'm happy to share more offline.
Thank you. Christelle, you mentioned innovation, and we'll go around the room after your response. How are you using innovation to do more, to reach more, to leverage more?
I like that question. So innovation can really take many different realms. So I'll just go back to basics. What's really innovative about what we do and we're still doing, in my mind, is we're still predominantly the only lender in Indian country. So we have been very innovative in expanding our lending products over the years to meet local demand. We've also been really innovative in still looking at this capital, deprivation that we see. OESTA has aggregated very large amounts of capital for the first time in our history to assist our tribal members. So 2 years ago, we put the first of its kind $10 million capital aggregate pool for Native communities that needed longer term capital and lower rates. And we just finished putting together a $25 million COVID relief and recovery fund for Native communities nationwide. Again, a vast amount of partners that helped facilitate and capitalize that. But when I think innovation, we have been very innovative financially and pairing that with technical assistance that's really, it can go outside of the Native realm. It can go, to all colors, spectrums, and communities. So I think we've just been really innovative, keeping up with the demand for our target market, Indian country, and try to facilitate that to the best of our ability.
And enlighten me, what is considered Indian country? I mean, there's, native populations throughout.
That's such a great question. Yeah. So Indian country is so diverse. We have 573 federally recognized tribes. So essentially, that is reservations throughout the United States. We also have 60 state recognized tribes. We have over 30 unrecognized tribes. And it's important to note that over half of our population live in anchor cities, for lack of a better word, all throughout the United States. But a majority, not a majority, live in urban centers. So in looking at the scope of what Indian country is, AWISTA invests where there's large concentrations of Native American populations. We lend in rural areas. We're lending in Rapid City, South Dakota, which is considered, a little bit urban, but there's a huge concentration of natives that move from the reservations to larger cities and provide services there. So it's really broad.
Really important to know. Jim, how are you using technology or innovation to expand and do more?
To expand what? I'm sorry.
To expand your services, to reach more, do more.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, the connection was just a little off for a moment. What I think the last year or 15 or plus months has kind of pushed us to use technology in ways that we probably would have been more hesitant. So we found that rather than being able to just open physical offices in places, we established virtual offices for certain products and services, whether that's for mortgages or programs we run for people who are seeking addiction recovery, those kinds of things. And so just creating platforms would be one way. Learning how to deploy capital in communities where we've gone completely paperless on all of this. And these are these are obvious things to do, but I think along the lines of what Crystal said, that sometimes in these more remote markets, what feels innovative to us are things other folks have already done. And so I think so we do look for those smart, obvious things that are happening in urban centers, particularly, and how do we right size those for the markets that we work in. And so I think those are just a couple of those types of examples. And we actually deployed more capital and helped more people last year than we had in any prior period.
Mm-hmm.
I think about the communities that you serve, Jim and Crystal, and the disparities didn't just happen yesterday. It just happened, diverse in terms of equity and access to capital and financial inclusion, investment in those communities. It's been going on for generations. I mean, what can be done right now to just change the trajectory of everything? And Ernst Park, please, jump in, particularly in the work that you're doing, because obviously what's been done before was not working. So how can we create a new story, from those geographical, the Indian country and the Appalachia as well? No pressure. Go ahead.
There's a lot to that question, and a tremendous challenge. You're talking about centuries of inequality, but one exciting thing about the era we're in now is the tools to achieve tremendous success have become so inexpensive and so accessible. Learning to use them and knowing where they are is a critical education challenge for all of us. But once you find that out, you no longer need millions of dollars to build hardware servers and have an IT staff. You can go online and get almost free cloud computing, AI tools, data capture and visualization technologies, and then it's just a matter of creativity and finding early funding, which is very difficult to do, but that's now in the tens of thousands of dollars instead of tens of millions of dollars. So it's still a challenge, but continuing to drive down the bar to just get into the game, I think, is a critical opportunity for all of us.
Parth?
Yeah, I would point to maybe two things specifically to our industry, the healthcare industry, that have really changed over the course of the last 18 months that I think have done a tremendous amount for getting folks who need healthcare easier access to healthcare. And I think both of them, in a large part, were driven by regulatory changes. One was making telehealth and virtual care more accessible. Um, there were incentives that needed to be aligned to make sure that that was something that could happen on a national level. There were a lot of state by state challenges that were limiting that access before, and I think that's something that's here to stay. We're very excited about that. We continue to invest in that. But I think a large part of it, which I alluded to earlier, is that some people, and Crystal mentioned this, broadband access, internet access is just not available everywhere. And so there's some people who just won't have a phone, who won't have internet access or a computer and be able to get that care. And it's thinking about, well, how do we change this paradigm of everybody having to go to a physical site to get care? How do we decompose that, decentralize that, and then bring that care to them? And there are a lot of ways in which the healthcare industry can do that. We're seeing a lot of folks think about that creatively, but I think our focus is accelerating the growth of that trend, and so flipping the model upside down, so that we're delivering care oriented around people rather than aggregating care and expecting people to seek it out. Without having all the information they generally need to figure out when to seek it out.
Thank you. And let's just stay with you, Parth, and then go around the virtual room. And Parth, how can everyone reach you to learn more, to connect with you, to collaborate, to partner, to go to dinner? How about that?
Lots of ways. So my email address is a good place to start. It's Parth, my first name, at flaircapital.com. You can reach me on LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever your preferred mode of social communication is. But the easiest way is to email me, and then you can find me on any of the social channels.
Okay. Jim?
You can reach me as well. Email's the best. My first name, Jim, at fahe.org, FAHE.org. And I think the time is right now to make a big difference with all the federal programs that are coming, small investments that help ready organizations like Crystal's or my own to really put that money to work and create readiness for us will make all the difference.
Crystal?
Yes, so easiest way is email as well, Crystal@owista.org. You can also look at our website, owista.org, and we are all over social media as well. So you can look up the website, email me directly, or look for us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're all over. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ernst?
Yeah, thank you. So I'll go the Twitter route. At bluebearcap.com is an easy way to message us. If you're not on Twitter, then my email is also ernst@bluebearcap.com. And lastly, I just want to mention this discussion has been so focused on mission, community, impact, critical themes. Every one of the organizations here is also making money and investing very successfully. So I think the era of having to be concessionary and trade off returns versus impact is thankfully over. And that's also an exciting time.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us. This has been the Investing in Causes and Community in the Digital Age with my amazing and brilliant panelists doing impactful work in the world, Jim King, Ernst Sack, Parth Desai, Crystal Cornelius. I am Sabrina Lamb. Have a great rest of the Global Investment Summit.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.